Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello and welcome back to one more session on data analysis and interpretation. Today, we want to talk about a distribution that defies central limit theorem. Central limit theorem says that no matter what the distribution, if you take an average of large sample size, then the average tend to follow a normal distribution. But there is a rider to it. This would happen only if a mean value of the original distribution and its variance are well defined. Now one would say that how can you have a distribution without undefined mean and undefined variation, standard variance or standard deviation? But it happens, and that one such distribution is Cauchy distribution. It is a useful distribution, but it is a distribution which does not have a defined mean or defined variance. So today we are going to talk about this distribution. So what we will do is, first we will define what is Cauchy distribution. Then we will also define what is a standard form of Cauchy distribution and what is its cumulative distribution function. Then we will talk about how are its descriptive statistics. How does it compare with normal distribution? Where do Cauchy random variable arise from? And finally, we talk about Cauchy distribution and central limit theorem. So this is the definition of a Cauchy distribution. A random variable x is said to be Cauchy distribution with parameters theta and lambda if the probability density function of x can be expressed in this format, which is fx is equal to 1 over pi lambda times inverse of 1 plus x minus theta over lambda whole square when the x belongs from minus infinity to plus infinity. In this case, theta, as you can see, is a location parameter and lambda is a scale parameter. And the notation that we use is that we say that x is distributed as Cauchy, theta and lambda. Now when theta is 0, that is location is 0 and lambda, the scale parameter is 1, it is called a standard Cauchy distribution. The PDF for standard Cauchy distribution can be simplified and can be given as 1 over pi 1 plus x square for x belonging to minus infinity to infinity or the whole real line. The cumulative distribution function of Cauchy, general Cauchy with the parameters theta and lambda is given as 1/2 plus 1 over pi tangent inverse or arctangent of x minus theta over lambda. You simply replace theta by 0 and lambda by 1 and you get the CDF for a standard Cauchy distribution. Well, what are its descriptive statistics? The mean does not exist, variance does not exist, skewness does not exist, kurtosis does not exist, median is theta, mode is theta, and maximum amplitude at mode is 1 over pi lambda. There are some things I have forgotten to mention here, and that is its interquartile range can be given by theta plus or minus lambda. So these are it descriptive statistics. One wonders, what does it mean that there is no mean? So if you go back and let us take this standard Cauchy form, you try to find integral of x, f of x dx between, and you integrate. It's an indefinite integral. So it is to be integrated between minus infinity and infinity. And you would find that that integral turns out to be infinity minus infinity, and therefore it is undefined. I'm not going to prove it here. I will leave it to you because it's a question of calculus. I think you would enjoy doing it when you find time. So it neither has mean, does not have variance, does not have, it doesn't have any moments, any central or raw moments. All the raw moments, central moments are undefined, but it has a median and it has a mode, and as expected, it is at theta. So how does it look like? It looks like this. You see, this is a line, and we have taken several types of distribution. The blue line is the standard Cauchy distribution. You see here it is. Looks very much like a bell-shaped curve. And then if you just move the location, here it goes. The orange line is, the location is moved to 2 instead of 0. If you change the scale parameter from 1 to 2, it's the gray line distribution. It spreads across because the scale is higher. And if you half the scale, you make it 0.5, it is the yellow line, which is a very sharp one. So one would say that it looks very much like a normal distribution. So let us compare. So here is a comparison of a standard normal distribution with standard Cauchy distribution. The blue line is the normal distribution, and orange line is the Cauchy distribution. And you can see that the real difference comes at the two end tails. You see, with normal, the tails almost flatten out after the value plus and minus 3. That's where we say that between plus and minus 3 in the standard normal distribution, in this area you have 99.97% of 73% of data. While if you see here, the orange line, which is a standard Cauchy distribution, has a very, very thick tail. It hasn't, thinned down at all. It has a very thick tail. And that is the difference. Cauchy distribution has a very thick tail, while the normal distribution, the tail thins down and comes very close to 0. So the question is, how does it arise? One is very simple. If x and y are two independent standard normal random variables, their ratio follows a standard Cauchy distribution. The ratio of x divided by y follows a standard Cauchy distribution. And looking at this, you can make out why the mean does not exist. Okay. Another way is, if you already know, the student's t distribution with 1 degree of freedom is actually a standard Cauchy distribution. This is another way. You imagine that there is a point in a plane and there is a line, and there is a normal dropped on the line AO. So A is a point in a plane, and normal is dropped at O. So this angle is actually 90 degrees. And then you draw a line at angle of theta at A, and suppose it cuts the given line at a point P. So this, we call it a baseline. A is a fixed point. AO is normal to the baseline. And if you draw any other line at the angle theta at A, phi at A, and it cuts the line at P, then what we say is that if this angle phi varies from pi by 2 to minus pi by 2. It varies from minus pi by 2 to pi by 2. Then this distance OP, which will vary from minus infinity to plus infinity. And this OP then follows a Cauchy distribution with theta equal to 0. So if the angle phi in this arrangement varies uniformly between minus pi by 2 and pi by 2, then the OP is a Cauchy distribution with theta equal to 0. I think it would be very easy for you to prove. This also I'm not going to show here. You just try to take the distance OP in terms of angle phi, and then you vary angle in a uniform distribution and plug in the value what is OP in terms of phi, and you should be able to find a Cauchy, derive the Cauchy distribution here. But as I said, I'm going to leave this to you. So this is how it arises. Now we come to central limit theorem. Central limit theorem states that if independently distributed random variables x1, x2, x3, xn with finite mean and finite variance, then as n tends to infinity, summation of xi is normally distributed as summation of means and summation of variances. So if you take, instead of summation, if you take a mean value, you take an x bar, it will follow normal distribution with mean mu and variance sigma square over n. And this is what we will see, that how Cauchy distribution, not having finite mean and finite variance, it defies it. So I will share another Excel sheet here. Let us share another file here. See, okay. So this is an Excel sheet. I would like to quickly show you what I have done. I have generated Cauchy random variables here. These are all my Cauchy random variables. And in another sheet, I have generated normal random variables here, okay? And then I have plotted the normal and Cauchy distribution. I have generated random variables in about 10 lakhs, and I have taken an average up to 5 lakhs. You see, so it is about 5 lakhs data points on which I have taken an average, and I'm plotting out the averages. So I just repeat, I generated lots and lots of, that is about 1 lakh of random variable which were Cauchy, and I also generated about the similar amount of random variables which are normal. And then I took their averages. So what I have done, I have taken average of 10 random variables, 20 random variables, 30 random variables, etc. This is for T distribution I have done. This is for normal. So this is a normal random variable, and I have taken the average of 10 random variable, then another 20 independent random variable, another 30 random variable. Like this, I went up to 50,000. 5 lakhs of n is equal to 5 lakhs. I have gone up to that in a way. I did the same thing with respect to the Cauchy random variable. And now I'm going to show you, you see, the graph that you see itself, you see that the Cauchy random variables move wildly. You look at normal. As the number, this x-axis is the number of random variables on which you have taken an average. So here is a n, it's a axis for showing n, And this axis, y-axis, shows the value of x bar, the average. Same here for the Cauchy distribution. For normal distribution, you can see that it is just falling in place soon after you have taken about 10,000 data points. In fact, much before that, it starts coming very close to it. It also varies between only minus 0.5 to 0.3. While if you look at Cauchy distribution for the similar values for Cauchy random variables, they are varying between -8 and +8. And look at about 10,005 lakhs data points also, it is simply jumping around. Let us see what all happens. Just keep watching the y-axis of Cauchy distribution and y-axis of normal distribution, what are the limits within which it varies, and look at these two lines. So let us try to, I will calculate it again. And you see, it right now it looks fine, but then it varies on a very large scale from 0 to 250, while this has remained always very stable. Now you see the distribution. You see the normal doesn't change. Look at how Cauchy changes. The normal distribution never changes. It is very stable and it tends to 0, which is the mean. It's a standard normal variate. So it is the mean of the distribution. So the average follows the normal distribution, and its mean value is 0. While Cauchy distribution is just unstable because it does not have a well-defined mean. You see how it varies. Sometimes it comes down, sometimes it just varies widely. So this demonstration actually shows that Cauchy fails to follow central limit theorem as expected because it does not have a well-defined mean and standard deviation.
Today we are going to cover the session on what is called probability plots. I believe you all have experienced it or have played with it and experimented with it during the R sessions with Professor Gururajan on descriptive statistics. But now the time has come to formally introduce it to you as to what these plots are and what different kinds of plots are available. So first let us review what we have done in the past. We introduced random variable as a real valued function with a probability space as its domain. Then we introduced expectation of this random variable, and we also introduced certain special random variables which have specific models of distribution. So we introduced two kinds. One is a discrete distribution functions in which we covered Bernoulli trials, binomial distribution, geometric distribution, negative binomial distribution and hypergeometric distribution. While in the continuous distribution function we introduced uniform distribution function, then normal distribution function, then some derivatives of normal distribution such as chi-square, T distribution and F distribution. We also introduced other distributions such as log normal distribution, Weibull distribution, exponential distribution. I must mention that there are plethora, many distributions available, and many new distributions are discovered in order to meet today's data requirement. But we have shown you a few of them which you come across more frequently and which will be useful to you in your immediate engineering requirement, immediate materials data requirement. Of course, as and when we move forward, the new distributions that we may require in the further analysis will be introduced in details there. Now in all this issue, the question comes that we say that a random sample has been drawn from a distribution, a specific distribution, how do we know that it really comes from that distribution? The reality picture is something like this. You have a very large population which you are trying to study. For example, if you are studying the yield strength of a particular alloy which is produced in a factory, in a industry, then how are you going to guarantee that it is going to have this particular yield strength? Well, the method is that you will take a few samples, random samples, you will choose them randomly, not systematically, and then you will derive certain statistics and you will derive certain values, and you would like to see if this distribution, and you would have assumed that, well, theoretically the yield strength should follow say log normal distribution or say normal distribution. Then the question remains is that does sample say that or not? This is the question we would like to answer in this session, and this can be answered through what is known in statistics as goodness of fit tests. Goodness of fit tests are a very theoretical derivation of comparing the data values, data CDF with the assumed CDF. But there is another method which is called a graphical method, which does not give you a strong proof, but it gives you a confirmatory guideline that yes, our assumption that this particular sample comes from this distribution may be correct in this scenario, and this is what we would like to cover. We are not going to cover the theoretical goodness of fit tests in this course, but we would like to cover some of the graphical methods for confirmatory guidelines. We are going to consider primarily two such graphical methods. One is called probability plots or PP plots, and the other is called a quantile plot, which is known as QQ plots. Now, how do we go about doing this graphical comparison? We assume that data is a sample from a particular distribution. Your data, what you have got is a sample values coming from a particular assumed distribution. Hence, naturally it means that whatever cumulative distribution function that you will obtain from data should match with the assumed distribution, cumulative distribution function. Similarly, if they are coming, the sample data is truly coming from the one particular assumed distribution, then the quantiles that we have calculated from the data should match with the theoretical quantiles that you would get from the assumed distribution. Such matching can be worked out in two ways. If you are plotting the data CDF versus distribution CDF, and if both are equal, they should fall on a straight line. So, this is case 1. The other one is if data quantiles, if you plot against the assumed distribution theoretical quantiles, then they should also match and they should fall on the straight line x is equal to y. This is case 2. So, here I have described PP plot. CDF is calculated from the data and it is called an empirical CDF. Then another CDF is calculated from the assumed distribution and it is called a theoretical CDF. PP plot refers to plotting the empirical CDF on y axis and theoretical CDF on the x axis. If our assumption is true that the data is truly coming from the assumed distribution, then the points on this plot should fall approximately on y is equal to x line. Otherwise, we should be able to clearly see a mismatch. So, let us see the two plots. Now in this plot what I have done is, I have simulated standard normal variates using random number generator. I have simulated about 100 of them, and then I have calculated from that data the cumulative distribution function. Let us do some recalling here. Cumulative distribution function of data is nothing but number of data, or let us call it f of x less than or equal to t, is nothing but number of data points less than or equal to t divided by n, which is total data points. Okay. So, this is called the empirical CDF. Okay. So, you calculate the empirical CDF, and then from a standard normal distribution you have a CDF which you can call f of t again. Then it is nothing but integral minus infinity to t 1 over square root 2 pi exponential minus 1/2 x square dx. So, this is called theoretical CDF. So, the values of this theoretical CDF on t is given here. This is the x axis which gives the theoretical CDF. This empirical CDF is plotted on the y axis, and that is shown in here. So, if you take any typical value here, this says that theoretical CDF, which is in here, this is your theoretical CDF value, and this is your empirical CDF value. So, this is how all these points are plotted. And now what we say is that if your assumed distribution is the correct distribution for the data, that is your data truly comes from the standard normal distribution, which in this case we know because we have generated it randomly, you can see that it should fall on the line, this is y is equal to x line. So, it should fall approximately on y is equal to x line, and you can see that these points are falling, and therefore it says that okay, it confirms graphically that the data points seem to be coming from the standard normal distribution. Let us take the case of mismatch, because sometimes we understand only when we see the matching, but more we understand if we see the mismatch. Now here we go. Here I have generated a log normal data by random number generator. So, I have a log normal data generated from the random number generator, and I am assuming that the data is actually coming from a Weibull distribution. I have generated the data, so it means that I have a data from a population which actually has a distribution log normal, while I have thought that I have actually drawn a sample from a Weibull distribution. I have very purposefully taken these two distributions together is because in the field of metallurgical parameters, or properties such as strength property, you take yield strength, you can take UTS, we can consider even the fracture toughness. There is always a question which distribution is closer, and the two competitive distributions for all the strength property of the material is log normal and Weibull. So, here I have taken the log normal and Weibull distribution as two competitive distributions. So, I once again repeat, what we have taken is we have taken a data actually from the log normal distribution, but I have assumed or I have believed that the data is coming from the Weibull distribution. Then this becomes my theoretical distribution and this becomes my empirical distribution. And I have plotted once again, this shows the Weibull CDF and this shows the empirical log normal CDF. That is, it is only an empirical CDF, it is not really log normal. I have originally drawn the data from log normal. So, please let us understand it clearly. This is the data, this is coming, the empirical means that it is coming from data. But for my understanding in this course, I have generated this data from log normal CDF, therefore I am writing log normal, otherwise it is a data. So, just as we did it in the previous case, for data the empirical CDF is a ratio of number of data points less than or equal to T divided by total number of data. Okay. So, this is your empirical CDF for value T, and then this is a Weibull CDF which I call this is calculated from the Weibull CDF distribution function and I call it a Weibull CDF. And now you see that if I draw this line which is x is equal to y, this is x is equal to y or y is equal to x line, you see that the data is systematically falling above and falling below. There is no random behavior, I mean it is not an error difference as it happened in the previous case. The data is systematically going above and then systematically going down, and therefore we understand that there is a mismatch with your empirical CDF and your assumed CDF. Your assumed CDF is far away from what your data says, and remember, data is what we believe, data is what we believe. Now let us understand the QQ plot. Here again, like CDF, we take the quantiles of empirical distribution and we plot it against the quantiles of theoretical distributions. Okay. You please recall what is quantile. You have understood the quantile in terms of quartile. Okay. We are talking about quantiles. We have come across the definition of quartiles. Quartiles is such that first quartile Q1 is such that probability of data x less than or equal to Q1 is 0.25. Quartile 2 is such that probability of x less than or equal to Q2 is half, and Q3 is a third quartile where probability of x less than or equal to Q3 is 0.75. So, if you want to divide the data into 4 equal parts, your data is here. If you want to divide the data into 4 equal parts such that the probability from negative infinity to q1, q1 to q2, q2 to q3 and q3 onwards are all equal. These are all equal probability and they are all 1/4. This is what is called quartile, and if you recall, this is also known as median. Quantile is a general term. So, if you wish to have this probabilities, your data be divided into say 5 equal parts, then you will have, if you want to divide it into 5 equal parts, then you will have each of this, there are 6 parts here, right. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So, each one will have a probability 1/6. So, you will have a 5 values which I call P1, P2, P3, P4 and P5. Then this will be called pentile. So, if I take a first pentile, P1 is such that probability that x is less than or equal to P1 is 1/6, and likewise P2 is such that probability of x less than or equal to P2 is 1/3 or 2/6. Likewise you can define. So, quantile is a general term. If you want to consider the case of dividing the data into 4 equal probabilities, you will have quartiles. If you want to, sorry, these are not pentiles, these are hexyles. If you want to divide it into 6 equal part, it will have 5 points P1, P2, P3, P4, P5, which will divide each data into 1/6. They are called hexyles. You can have deciles, you can have centeniles, etc., etc. I mean, you have 90% data here and there. You mean there are various ways of doing it. So, in this way you can define a quantiles. In the example which I am going to show that there is a matching and there is a mismatch, I am going to consider deciles. I am going to consider deciles. It means that the data will be divided into 10 equal probability parts, where each part will have a probability of 0.1, 0.1, 1/10. And when I define like this, you remember it is a cumulative probability that I am defining. So, I am defining all the values here below this, and therefore, it becomes 2 times 1/6. Okay. So, let us see the plots now. So, if you look at the plot, again I have taken the same standard normal variates generate data generated by using random number generator, and I have calculated their deciles. So, there are there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9 points. Remember, if it is a decile, you are bringing it into 10 parts, there will be 9 quantiles, 9 deciles. Okay. And these 9 deciles I have plotted. If you take any typical one, okay. If you take any typical one, this shows the data decile or as I have called it empirical quantiles, and this is theoretical quantile calculated from normal 0, 1, and I have plotted each value, and you can see that there is a deviation. I have made the points very big, but otherwise you can look at the center of these points and you know that they are little above on the line or little below, etc., because I am actually taking a random number generated standard normal random generator using random generator to generate the standard normal distribution. Now, if you look at the mismatch, again I have done the same thing. I have taken the log normal distribution to generate random variables of log normal. In other words, I have used a random number generator and generated log normal random variables, and I calculated quantiles, and I am thinking that they have all come from Weibull distribution and I am comparing them. So, I am doing little bit of an artificial thing, but this is to drive the point home. I am following this random number generated values here. So, this is once again empirical deciles, and these are Weibull deciles, these are also deciles. There are exactly 10, if you look at it, there are 9 data points, 3 and 3 is 6 and this 3 9. And you can see that very systematically it diverts away from the line which is x is equal to y, and therefore it says that what you have assumed your data coming from is not the case. Your data is coming from some other distribution than the assumed distribution of Weibull. Once again I repeat that here we are comparing the empirical deciles with the Weibull deciles. This is calculated from data. So, if I call D1 as the first decile, then D1 is such that probability of data x is less than or equal to D1 is 0.1, D2, that is this is D1 point, this is D2, then this D2 is such that probability that x is less than or equal to D2 is 0.2, and likewise. So, this is D1, this is D2, like this I have calculated. The interesting part here is that in the previous case we were matching probability with probability, here we are matching the data value with the data value. So, this is something strikingly different in this case. There are other plots, same plots are made in a different way. For example, instead of considering your x axis, as the actual quantiles or actual CDF and y axis also as CDF, it says that you take y axis, x axis as the data values. So, x axis becomes the data values and y axis is taken as a theoretical probability scale. There are, when the computers were not so common, when we studied statistics, there used to be normal probability scale paper available in the market and Weibull probability scale paper available in market. Now you do not need, as you have done it in the R exercise, you can very easily give a command as to what should be your y axis, what theoretical probability scale you want, and then it plots the data values against the theoretical probability value, and again the matching has to be at x is equal to y. So, x is in the usual numeric scale showing the data. Probability values are plotted against the value of random variables that it takes, and here also it falls on a y is equal to x line. So, the exercise that you might have done in the descriptive statistics R sessions are largely using the probability scale as one of the y axis and x as a data axis. So, let us summarize what we discussed today. We talked about graphical methods to check if the distributional assumptions made on the data are matching or not matching. If you plot an empirical CDF against the theoretical CDF, it is called a PP plot. If you plot a data quantiles against the theoretical quantiles, then it is called a QQ plot. The same comparison can be made by plotting empirical CDF on the you can plot the empirical CDF using a probability plot papers, and this probability papers, I do not know if the market anymore sells it, but at least you can have it easily on any software package that does the statistical analysis. In particular, R has this facility. In all the above cases, it is a matching if it matches x is equal to y line. If there is a mismatch, then that is called a indicate a mismatch with your assumption and where the data comes from. In this session, we would consider the case of sampling distributions. Let us first review what we have done in the past. We introduced certain special random variables with some discrete random variables. We call them discrete distribution functions. Continuous random variables can also be called a continuous distribution functions. With each one of them we introduce what is their mean, what is their standard deviation. We once again introduced central limit theorem, and in just the previous session we looked into how to generally check the correctness of assumed distribution graphically through probability plots. What we want to do in this sessions or coming up all the sessions from now onwards is make a relationship between the observed sample and the population. Let us try to understand why are we doing all this. The whole purpose of learning statistics is that we all are aware that there is a general population, there is a larger information in the world, there is an entirety of certain kind of data in the world, but we can't look into each and every data points that is available in the population. This entirety I call a population, but what we do is we take a small sample out of it, we observe it, we do certain calculations on it, and we try to make the judgment on what the population would be like. This is the whole game of statistics. So, here now onwards in this course we are trying to do something to set up our understanding of population through a random sample. So, we are going to introduce what is called a random sample once again. We have already done it once in the past, we are going to do it again. We will introduce something called a sample statistic, then we will talk about the most common way to understand any population or any sample for that matter. As we studied in the descriptive statistics, the most common numerical method is the central tendency, or we can call here sample mean, and then dispersion of the data through sample sample variance. In this particular session, we are going to concentrate only on the sample mean. We will find what is the expected value of sample mean, because remember sample mean is also a random variable. So, it has a expected value, it has a distribution, and therefore, we would like to find out what is its expected value, what is its standard deviation of the sample mean. We will revisit central limit theorem because it tells us more about the nature of distribution of sample mean when the sample size is very large. We will also give an example, we will also show that how a binomial distribution can be approximated as a normal distribution. Remember, in the past we have approximated binomial by Poisson. So, we will clarify as to when it is to be distributed approximated as a normal distribution. We will give some examples. So, let us understand, as I said, the population and the random sample. As I said, statistics is a science. The whole purpose of statistics is to understand a population through a small observed sample value, small compared to the population itself. So, here I have given an example. This example concerns that you imagine that in a production line in an industry certain alloy is being produced and the customer is requesting an alloy with a certain value of strength property of the alloy. Okay. Now, it is the industry's responsibility, marketing department's responsibility to tell them that our alloy has a certain strength properties. It has a mean strength properties of this. How will it do it? Well, it cannot start testing each and every alloys ingots that are produced. Instead, what it may do is it may take a lot of it, the randomly chosen ingots, and then from each ingot it will randomly choose a sample and it will put through a test and find its strength property, and then it will say that our lot of production will have this much of strength property. So, here the complete production lot is what I call or what we call in statistics population, and whatever that small sample you take is called a random sample. So, formally speaking, capital X1, capital X2 up to capital Xn be an independent random sample from a common distribution function f. This common distribution function f refers to the population distribution function. Then it is said that x1, x2, x3, xn constitutes a random sample or just a sample from a population with a distribution f. Here the randomness indicates that there is no obvious order in which x1, x2, xn are selected. There should not be, it should not happen that you take always the first ingot from a lot or you take every 10th ingot from a lot. You must choose it in a random fashion so that the sample becomes a representative of the population. A sample statistic or simply a statistic is a quantity that is computed using only the data. You have come across such quantities a lot in this course. For example, average, standard deviation, maximum of a data, minimum of a data, all these quantities are calculated without making any assumptions on what the distribution of the population is. It is purely from the data. Such a quantity is called statistic. Please remember, it is singular, it is statistic. Now, as I said, our whole interest is in finding out f, the population distribution f, capital F. There are two cases here. If you know the form of the distribution f, as in the past I said that if you are dealing with the strength property of a material, there is a possibility that it follows a log normal distribution. So, your f has a form of a log normal distribution. If you are looking at the differences, suppose you have already know that this whole alloy is designed to have a particular value of strength property, say yield strength, and in that case what you are going to do is you are going to actually measure the yield strength and take the difference. If you take such difference between the yield strength, you are sort of trying to calculate an error, and therefore it may follow a normal distribution with a mean 0 and some variance sigma square. So, it means that you are able to decide a priori, right from the beginning you are able to decide what is the form of the distribution f, but what you do not know, you know the form of the distribution up to a point, up to a level where you do not know the parametric values of that distribution. So, if you have assumed normal distribution for an error, you say that the mean value is 0, or you can say that you do not know what is mean value. The two unknown parameters are mu and sigma square. If you are looking at a Weibull distribution and you want to look at only 2 parameter Weibull distribution, then you are worried about the scale and shape parameter. If you introduce, you think that no, it may be a 3 parameter Weibull distribution, then you have the form of the distribution which is Weibull, but what you do not have is the 3 parameters values. So, the psi, which is the location, scale and shape. So, such situation it is called a process of parametric estimation. You know the form of the distribution, but you do not know the parametric value. So, then it falls in the first case, which is called a parametric estimation and inference. Suppose you do not even know the form of the distribution, that happens, or you are not able to justify it properly that it should fall in this particular form of distribution, then it is called a non-parametric inference and estimation. In this present course, we are going to consider only the case of parametric estimation, and therefore the common distribution will be referred as a population distribution. We know its form, but we do not know its parameter, and we are going to go for parametric estimation case.